You're in Italy. Perfect sun, perfect pizza. But enjoying that view, it might be a fatal mistake. That peace is a total illusion. Literally a few miles beneath your sneakers, the Earth isn't just sleeping. It's taking a deep, nervous breath. And I mean it. Geologists are sweating right now because this hidden process isn't just happening. It's accelerating fast. When most people think about volcanoes in Italy, they think about Mount Vesuvius and that tragic story of the ancient city of Pompeii. Ash falling from the sky, a city frozen in time. A tall volcano standing over the Bay of Naples. Vesuvius looks dangerous, and it makes sense that people focus on it. But Vesuvius is not the biggest threat in the area. The real danger is harder to see. Just west of Naples is an area called Campi Flegrei. The name means burning fields. If you visit, it doesn't look like a volcano at all. There's no mountain, no cone, no rivers of lava. Instead, you see towns, ports, roads, and neighborhoods. People live their everyday lives there. That's because Campi Flegrei is not a normal volcano. It's a supervolcano. Forget the classic pointy mountain. Regular volcanoes build up, but supervolcanoes blow down. They leave behind a massive bowl-shaped depression called a caldera. Campi Flegrei is so vast you could stand right in the center and never realize you're on top of a volcano. In fact, a huge chunk of Naples is built right inside it. Can you picture this? Homes, schools, and highways sit on ground that is still active. It's like a giant chest taking a breath, rising and falling. Scientists call this Brady Schism. Entire neighborhoods have shifted up or down by feet over the centuries. But how? That rhythm is changing fast. Around 2022, scientists started paying much closer attention to the area. Seismic activity was increasing, and new tools made it possible to look at the data in better ways. Researchers gathered records of more than 54,000 earthquakes. Most of them were small. Many were too weak for people to even feel. When all of that data was put on a map, it looked like chaos. Thousands of tiny dots spread everywhere with no clear pattern. To the human eye, it was just noise. Too much information to make sense of. So, scientists turned to machine learning. Instead of looking at each quake one by one, AI models were used to scan the entire data set at once. The goal wasn't to predict an eruption. It was to see how stress was moving underground. That's when something new showed up. Hidden inside all that messy data was a large circular fault system, a ring-shaped crack in the Earth's crust that outlined the edge of the caldera. It had always been there, but it was buried in the noise. Once the AI pulled it out, it changed how scientists understood the whole system. This kind of ring fault matters a lot. It acts like a pathway. Pressure from deep underground, magma, hot water, and volcanic gases can move along it more easily than through solid rock. Instead of pressure spreading out evenly, it gets focused along this ring. That alone would be concerning, but the story doesn't stop there. The new study uncovered something scary under Potui. The city is sitting on a crossroads of deep cracks in the earth, including the newly discovered ring fault. Scientists used to think this area was low risk, but the new numbers tell a different story. Hatuoli sits on the weakest spot of the whole system. Since the rock is already so broken up underground, the pressure has an easy way out. That means when the magma chamber breathes, this city takes the hardest hit. Residents aren't just neighbors to the volcano. They're sitting right on top of the exhaust pipe. Based on this new data, scientists are saying that magnitude 5 earthquakes are not just possible. They're likely. To many people, that number doesn't sound all that scary. We see headlines about magnitude 7s and 8s in the Pacific all the time. But Campi Flegrei plays a completely different set of rules. The danger here isn't just the size of the quake, it's the location. In places like Tokyo, quakes are usually deep. So by the time the waves reach you, they feel like a rolling motion. But here, earthquakes are incredibly shallow, sometimes starting just a few thousand FT below the pavement. That makes a huge difference because the explosion is happening right under your feet. The ground doesn't roll, it jolts hard. It's a violent vertical kick that amplifies the damage. Even a small quake here hits with the intensity of a truck crash. And that kind of force is bad news also because of the buildings. Many structures in this area are old historic treasures, sure, but dangerous. They were built centuries before modern seismic safety codes were even a concept. We're talking about things that were never designed to move. Thick stone walls, aging water pipes, and rusted gas lines. None of this handles shaking very well. Modern steel bends. These old stones just crack. All of this destruction is driven by a phenomenon called bradyism. Think of it as a massive hydraulic system operating deep underground. Miles below the surface, a volatile mix of magma, superheated fluids, and volcanic gases are constantly trapped. Over time, that cocktail builds up immense pressure. As the pressure grows, it pushes against the crust, literally lifting the ground and the entire city upward. When the gas escapes or the pressure drops, the ground sinks back down. It's a slow, relentless cycle of rising and falling. And this isn't just a scientific theory. We have clear physical proof. In Potui, there's an ancient Roman building called the Temple of Serapis. Its stone columns are marked with holes made by sea creatures that only live underwater. Those holes show that the building once sank below sea level and stayed there for a long time. Later, it rose back up again. The ground didn't move suddenly. It moved slowly over centuries. The Earth here has always been unstable, slowly breathing in and out. What scares scientists today is how fast the movement is happening now. Since April 2025, the ground has pushed up 6 in every single month. That doesn't sound like much, but in geology, that's fast. Over a year, it adds up to nearly 7 in. Buildings are not designed to move like that. As the ground lifts, foundations get stressed, pipes stretch, roads bend. At the same time, the ring fault is being pulled tighter and tighter. Systems under stress don't always fail slowly. Sometimes they break all at once. It wouldn't take a huge event to push things over the edge. A small shift in magma, a sudden release of gas. Something like that could trigger stronger earthquakes. If that scenario plays out, we're not talking about some cracked plaster or a few broken windows. It hits the panic button for the entire red zone. And let's be real, evacuating Naples isn't just hard. It's a logistical nightmare straight out of a disaster movie. We're talking about a critical red zone holding 500,000 people from Potsui to western Naples who would have to evacuate the second the alarm sounded. And right next door is the yellow zone, where another 800,000 residents are sitting directly in the path of choking volcanic ash. These are narrow, winding, ancient streets built for donkeys and carts, not for 500,000 panic-stricken people trying to leave at the same time. It's a recipe for absolute gridlock. We're talking bumper-to-bumper traffic where nobody moves an inch. Then there's the money. The economic hit would be staggering. Overnight, one of the most vibrant places on Earth turns into a ghost town. No tourism, shops boarded up, businesses wiped out. The ripple effect wouldn't stop at the Italian border. It would hit the whole European economy. Now, sure, this isn't ancient Pompeii. We have satellites and smartphones. We aren't totally blind. So, hey, apparently there is absolutely no need to be worried, right? Oh boy, scientists predict a volcanic eruption that is likely to be one of the most destructive in the history of our species. There's a 1 in 6 chance of it happening in the century, and it could seriously change the climate even more and put millions of lives in danger. Back in January 2022, the Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai volcano erupted in the South Pacific Ocean, creating a huge explosion. It sent tsunamis all the way to Japan, North America, and South America. Tonga itself was hit hard with damage costing nearly 20% of the country's entire economy. Now, researchers at the Niels Bohr Institute in Copenhagen have studied ice samples from Greenland and Antarctica, and their findings are worrying, predicting potential global volcanic disaster. They say there's a real chance of a much bigger eruption, a whopping 10 to 100 times larger than Tonga's. In the past, eruptions this size used to change the climate and even cause civilizations to collapse. Despite future volcanic eruption risks, experts say the world isn't prepared at all. Michael Cassidy, a volcanologist from the University of Birmingham, warns that no sufficient effort is made to handle a disaster like this. He says that NASA and other space agencies spend billions on asteroid defense. At the same time, a volcanic super-eruption is way more likely than an asteroid impact. And right now, there's no global plan for dealing with a massive eruption, even though it's likely to be far more destructive. The last magnitude 7 eruption happened in 1815 at Mount Tambora in Indonesia. Then, thousands of people lost their lives in just a few days. The disaster also disrupted weather and caused food shortages worldwide, affecting millions. That eruption was the biggest in recorded history. It blasted a massive cloud of particles into the sky. Those particles blocked sunlight, cooled the planet, and caused worldwide chaos. The year after the eruption became known as the year without a summer. Temperatures plummeted, crops failed, famine spread, and a color pandemic broke out, leading to tens of thousands of lost lives. A shocking fact, the eruption may have even inspired Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein while stuck indoors during the unusually cold summer of 1816 in Switzerland. Now, since then, many volcanoes have erupted, but none have matched Tambora's scale. Now, over 200 years later, scientists warned that there's a new supervolcano threat. Another massive eruption could be on the way, and the world might not be ready for it. So, while scientists seriously discuss the likelihood of the next volcanic eruption, experts are calling for urgent action to prepare before it's too late. So, the thing is, a massive volcanic eruption today could be even more devastating than the year without a summer. Unlike back then, we're already dealing with all kinds of weather changes and a more fragile global system, which could make the effects even worse. Dr. Michael Rampino, a geological scientist, warns that the world is more unstable now, and it means that a modern-day mega-eruption could have even more severe consequences. But this time, greenhouse gases from fossil fuels may make the aftermath of such an eruption even colder instead of warmer. So, we're talking about volcanic activity endangering humanity. Dr. Thomas Aubrey, a volcanologist, found that in a hotter, more turbulent atmosphere, the sulfur dioxide gas released by volcanic eruption would spread faster and farther than in the past. This gas forms sulfate aerosols, which reflect sunlight and cause global cooling. Because these tiny particles would be more evenly distributed, they'd have a stronger cooling effect than in 1815. Another atmospheric scientist at Cambridge explains that the size of these airborne particles matters. It affects how they absorb sunlight, and in a future warmer climate, an eruption could make the surface cooling stronger by 15%. At the same time, there are still many unknowns. Scientists from the University of Geneva say that we're only beginning to understand the full impacts of such an event. It's also difficult to precisely estimate future volcanic eruption risks since we have very little data on older eruptions. So to understand past volcanic activity, researchers analyze ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica as well as ancient tree rings. Those act as historical records of weather changes. These measurements suggest that several eruptions in the past few thousand years temporarily cooled the planet by about 2 to 212 degree F. One of the most catastrophic examples is the 1257 Somalis eruption in Indonesia, which was so powerful that it likely triggered the Little Ice Age. It was a period of global cooling that lasted for hundreds of years. More recently, the 1991 Mount Pinatubo eruption in the Philippines slightly cooled Earth for a few years. Because this eruption happened in the satellite era, scientists were able to measure exactly how much sulfur dioxide was released and how it affected the atmosphere. But even with modern tools like satellites and seismic instruments, scientists still have difficult times forecasting the next big volcanic eruption. Luckily, even though we can't predict the exact timing, we can study worst-case scenarios to help authorities prepare, and this includes creating evacuation plans and stockpiling food in case of global crop failures caused by volcanic cooling. The changes in weather patterns might make volcanoes more active. Melting glaciers can reduce pressure on underground magma, which will increase the chances of an eruption. Plus, more extreme rainfall, which is becoming more and more common, can seep into volcanic cracks and cause powerful steam-driven explosions. It can affect both active and dormant volcanoes. Because of these risks, researchers are now mapping volcanoes that are the most vulnerable to climate change. Their studies show that the highest supervolcano threat comes from such areas as Iceland, Chile, and Indonesia. Those are places where glaciers are melting quickly or rainfall is increasing dramatically. A 2022 study found that 716 volcanoes worldwide, that's about 58% of all known active above-ground volcanoes, could be triggered by extreme rainfall, increasing the likelihood of another mini ice age. Now, let's get back to that Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai eruption that occurred on January 15, 2022. Scientists have confirmed that it created the highest plume ever recorded. The volcano, located underwater in the South Pacific, sent an ash cloud 187,000 ft high. That's higher than any previously recorded eruption. What makes this eruption even more remarkable is that it was the first to ever reach the mesosphere. It's the third layer of Earth's atmosphere. The mesosphere begins at about 160,000 ft above Earth, where meteors start burning up and creating shooting stars. To measure the plume's height, researchers from the University of Oxford and Ralph Space used data from 3 geostationary weather satellites. Before this, the record for the highest volcanic plume was held by Mount Pinatubo's 1991 eruption in the Philippines, which reached 131,000 ft high. Interestingly, this kind of measurement was only possible thanks to modern satellite technology, and a decade ago, no one would have been able to do this. Another volcano we should mention in relation to a potential global volcanic disaster is located on Iceland's Reykjanes Peninsula. Its latest eruption happened in November of 2024, leading to evacuations in nearby areas. The eruption began just after 11 p.m., with little warning. The volcano released orange lava from a nearly 2-meter-long fissure. Authorities ordered evacuations for about 50 homes and guests staying at the Blue Lagoon Spa Resort, a popular tourist destination southwest of Reykjavik. While air travel was not affected, officials still warned of potentially dangerous gas emissions spreading across parts of the peninsula, including the nearby town of Grindik. Grindik, home to 3,800 residents, has repeatedly witnessed volcanic activity, and past eruptions even damaged its infrastructure and forced evacuations. For example, in August 2024, a 2 and 1 to 2 mile long crack opened at the Sun and Kongigar crater near Grind. It led authorities declaring a state of emergency as lava flowed in multiple directions. Fortunately, Iceland's meteorological office reported that the latest eruption was significantly smaller than the one in August. Geophysics experts conducted aerial surveys and figured out that the situation appeared less intense than the previous eruptions. These days, Grindik is not at risk, but the possibility of further developments cannot be ruled out. Scientists predict more volcanic eruptions. That's it for today. So, hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends.